For a network that seemed like an irresistible force just a few years ago, ESPN has also had a rough stretch with dwindling revenues and some high-profile cutbacks. Many conservatives think that's because ESPN wears its liberalism on its sleeve. And now they have a new controversy to cite. Adam has more.
For ESPN's Jemele Hill, having the freedom to say what she thinks is a point of pride.
We're in charge of our content from the extent of like what we want to do creatively or what we want to say. So there's no reins.
But now there may be. This week, Hill, who co-hosts ESPN's 6 p.m. Sports Center with Michael Smith, tweeted that President Trump is a white supremacist who's surrounded himself with other white supremacists and is unfit for office. The conservative media pounced, calling Hill's tweets proof of ESPN's liberal bias.
They fired Curt Schilling over a Twitter comment regarding North Carolina's bathroom bill.
I think that ESPN has chosen a lane politically.
Also pushing back, the White House, which gave ESPN some free personnel advice.
I think that's one of the more outrageous comments that anyone could make, and certainly something that I think is a fireable offense by ESPN.
The president himself weighed in on Twitter, demanding apologize for untruth. The network already has apologized, saying Hill's comments do not represent the position of ESPN and that Hill recognizes her actions were inappropriate. For her part, Hill says those tweets expressed my personal beliefs and that what she regrets is painting ESPN in an unfair light.
Well, Callie, where do you stand on this? Because, I mean, the Fox and Friends guy brought up the Curt Schilling thing. Did you recall? That was that revolting meme. Mm-hmm. It was more than a Twitter comment. But he's right. I mean, they fired him over his personal opinion.
Several times.
Yes.
But it's apples and oranges because they warned him many times, stop it, and he kept going. So by the time they got to the final one that was just as ridiculous and crazy and very offensive, they'd had it and said, okay, we warned you. So if we're going to follow the model of hiring and firing from Curt Schilling, then she's got 3 more times to say whatever she needs to say before they, bounce her out of there if that's the way they're going to do it. We've had these kinds of conversations before, and I'm all about pattern and practice. And as many people have written better than me, ESPN seems to be all over the space and how they handle their various personnel issues. But those two things, the Schilling versus Jemele Hill, are very clearly different. I'd like to point out that the comments that have been directed are not about so much what she said, but who she is. She's a part of the National Association of Black Journalists Sports Task Force, so I don't hang out with the sports people, but I know and have heard a lot of the stuff that has come back to her over the years. It's vile, it's vicious, it's nasty. It's never about what she says, but who she is. So I'm sure that this just set her off in this way. And by the way, the context of the comment, let's start where it began. She was responding to somebody about Kid Rock and his use of the Confederate flag and said these are symbols that are about white supremacy. And he surrounds himself with that. That's where the surround came from. And then back and forth. And then it eventually got to, well, who does President Trump surround himself with, blah, blah, blah. So there you have it. At the same time, let me just say, she has I believe in free speech. She obviously doesn't have free speech enough to demand a job. That's not where your free speech begins or ends. And she knows she's working in a corporate environment.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
She shouldn't have done it. She apologized. That seems sufficient. As much as I hate to engage in whataboutism, I will point out that 5 years ago, a reality TV star took to Twitter and called President Obama a racist. That reality TV star did not face any consequences whatsoever. That was Donald Trump, the host of Celebrity Apprentice.
I would say we don't want to get past the fact that the spokesperson for the White House, of the presidential administration, the executive branch, called for the firing of a journalist for being critical of the president. That's the kind of, it's very easy to forget what a weird place we're in right now.
She's not really a journalist. I mean,
she is a journalist. She was a newspaper reporter for, she's a journalist and commentator. But to say that the White House should be calling for her firing is several steps beyond. I appreciate the fact that Jemele Hill apologized for putting ESPN into that position, but did not withdraw her comments. We are in this very strange place where a large portion of America thinks what she thought, and I'm not willing to go to a place where saying that out loud means that you get fired from your job.
Yeah, Sarah Sanders lecturing somebody about ethics is kind of amusing, isn't it? But look, there are broader issues at play here, too. ESPN's business model is the problem. I think a much bigger problem than whatever political leanings come out here. They overpaid for sports rights that turn out not to be as valuable as they thought. And also, they're swimming in the toilet bowl we know as hot take culture. And where the emphasis is on, throwing these verbal grenades. So this isn't the last time you're going to see something like this happen at ESPN, because essentially that's what they say they want.
That's true.